Good evening. On behalf of the Disabilities Advisory Board, I welcome you to the 20th Annual Disability Service Award ceremony and our televised meeting. So you're all on TV right now. Okay. We are pleased to be joined tonight by Mayor John Duran, by Mayor Pro Tempore John D'Amico, by Council members Lindsay Horvath and Lauren Meister. Yeah. And I'm going to put our mayor to work. Mr. Mayor, will you please come up and lead us in the pledge to the flag, and would everybody rise?
Where is it? All right, please stand as you're able. Hand over heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kim, will you please take the roll call?
Sure. Yola Dore.
Present.
Vice Chair Freiberg.
Here.
Chair Friedman.
Here.
Danny Hang.
Here.
David Nash.
Here.
Roderick Renfrew.
Present.
Annie Simonko.
Here.
Louise Smith.
Here.
Rick Watts.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Board Member Doré.
Approve the agenda.
Yes. Board Member Hang.
Yes.
Board Member Nash.
Yes.
Board Member Renfrew.
Yes.
Board Member Simonko.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Board Member Watts.
Yes.
Vice Chair Freiberg.
Aye.
Chair Friedman.
Aye. Okay, the Disability Advisory Board values your comments. However, pursuant to the Brown Act, the Advisory Board cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Due to a really full agenda tonight, public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Okay, our first speaker is Stephanie Harker.
And can I just say, if anyone wants to give a Dodger update, feel free. But no Boston updates if it's good.
What did
It will be frowned upon.
Does everyone want to up?
No.
No Boston fans? I'm not.
Oh, the Dodger? Yeah.
Stephanie Harker, City of West Hollywood. I wanted to say congrats to the deserving recipients of the awards tonight. And I also want to remark that I'm thrilled to see someone using American Sign Language here tonight. Unfortunately, you can't see her. She's off camera, which means those people who are at home who do not read English and use sign to communicate are not benefiting from her presence, but I'm happy to see her here. Thank you. And I just want to request that all of us get involved in this and urge the City Council and any televised meetings, rent stabilization meeting, this meeting when it's televised, to have an on-camera signer. You know, you notice it when you see a disaster. Small little towns out in, wherever in Florida or South Carolina or in Puerto Rico, they have someone signing on camera so that they can communicate with every citizen. And I think it's really important, and I hope that you'll urge the council members and the staff members to put this on their priority list. Also, I also want to ask members of the public and the advisory board and the city and the staff to really get to work on upgrading Hart Park so that it is handicap accessible, which it is not. It does not comply with ADA. And this has been going on since we became guardians of the park for $1 a month. The City of Los Angeles actually owns it. So I don't want to wait till December 31st of 2019 when the contract is up. I hope you agree that everyone should be able to use a public facility. And at the moment, those who are mobile impaired, is that the correct, have mobility impairments, cannot go to Hart Park, a important public facility. Thank you, and congrats to those people tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Harker. Our next speaker is Eric John Schmidt. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Eric John Schmidt. I don't have my reading glasses, so I'm going to do this. I have been a resident of West Hollywood for almost 20 years. I have a great deal of experience caring for the disabled. I also have a great deal of compassion, respect, and deference for the disabled. My sister.
My sister has muscular dystrophy. She was the first poster child for Jerry Lewis. The doctors told my parents she wouldn't live past age 18. She's now in her 60s and on Facebook. I can remember when I was a teenager carrying her on my back and to get her to her wheelchair and doing things for her she could not do. I spent more time with her than my friends out of love and compassion. I also cared for my disabled people at the Triangle Square before they died. I think this award is very important and special honor reserved for those who have made extraordinary efforts to help the disabled. I don't know right now, but I would like the board members to tell the community what 24-Hour Fitness has specifically, historically done to help the disabled, and if they plan to do more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Arrigo.
Thank you, Disability Board Advisory Board members. I'd like to start out by congratulating board members Yola Dore and Annie Semenko as the County Commission on Disabilities. Acknowledge them for all of their advocacy and hard work that they put through in the many years, and thank you for allowing me to share that moment with you. It was a very special luncheon. And here we are, October again. Time flies, and let us not forget the other 11 months out of the year, because October is Disability Awareness Month. Let us not forget the other months, and particularly when I sat on the board with you guys, my personal goal was to help clear up any confusion for a person who has a partial or an unseen, not so blatant in your face disability. People come up with the negative remarks like he's arrogant, or because I don't see them wave at me, or a partially deaf person may not hear them say hello from a distance. It's real important to go up and talk to that individual, and you might have a better understanding of what a partial disability is. Because when I grew up, I thought blindness meant blackness, total darkness, and that's wrong. There's different degrees and variety levels of a disability. So go up and talk to that individual, and you'll have a better understanding of what a partial disability is. And lastly, I'd like to acknowledge former board member, longtime board member, Suzanne Dietrich, who passed away in June of this year. She was a very good friend of yours, good friend of mine, and a good friend of the city's. Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Our next speaker is Genevieve Morale. Genevieve? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Thank you. Our next speaker is Francisco J. Valencia.
Thank you, Disability Advisory Board member. First of all, I would like to say thank you to all the members who invited me to come to this event. We all know that this event is an important event for our people with disabilities and to celebrate Disability Awareness Month. Now, to me, I know I've been living in West Hollywood for 18 years, and my parents, they've been helping me a lot since I was like 4 years old, ever since I had a disability. But I would like to say thank you for everybody who has been a respectful person to our people with disabilities. And I would like to say thank you, all to my heart. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Francisco. Our next speaker is Marina Berkman. Marina Berkman?
Good afternoon. I'm Marina Berkman. I'm the director of West Hollywood Comprehensive Service Center, Jewish Family Service, and I would like to introduce our new disability clinician. Her name is Kimberly Marsh.
Hello. I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful to be working within not only an agency, but a city that has a rich history of serving its residents and being inclusive. I had a part in working firsthand in one of your events, the Disability Resource Fair this past Thursday, which I felt was a great success and an opportunity for me to meet a lot of the community members, work firsthand, and get to know some of you. So, thank you.
And you all know that our doors are always open to people with disabilities who need our help. I can see new faces among the board members, and I would like to invite you to our center if you want to learn more about our services. And I want to say congratulations to all awardees tonight. It's great success. Disabilities Awareness Month is always successful thanks to the efforts of Disability Advisory Board and the staff from the City of West Hollywood. And it's our mutual concern to provide all needed services to people in need. Thank you for your work and your cooperation.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Josh Kirby on behalf of Assemblyman Richard Bloom.
Good evening, Chair and board members. My name is Josh Kirby. As she said, I am a resident of West Hollywood, but I am here this evening both as a resident and as District Director for Assembly Member Richard Bloom. I'm here on his behalf to congratulate tonight's honorees, of course, and to thank them for all of their work, but to also to bring them certificates of appreciation and of recognition from the State Assembly, signed by Assemblymember Bloom, but also to thank each of you for all the work that you do, not only on the board, but throughout the community to, again, not only just help people with disabilities, but the entire community. You improve the work you do and the events like this that you hold and celebrate improves all of our lives. And so I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And our last speaker is Stephanie Cohen. Oh, wait, no, it's not our last speaker. We have one more. Kevin.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. I'm Stephanie Cohen. I'm District Director to Supervisor Sheila Kuehl in LA County. She is your LA County Supervisorial Representative for the City of West Hollywood, for those of you who might not have known that. I know, you're looking at me like you know for sure. Earlier this month, last week actually, the County of Los Angeles celebrated and participated in Disabilities Awareness Month with our County Commission on Disabilities, where we honored 3 really remarkable individuals. 2 of them are sitting here at this table, Yola and Annie. We were so honored to have you with us. The supervisor was so grateful that you accepted her invitation to be honored. We also honored Assemblymember Bloom's late parents, Ricky and Aaron Bloom, for the creation of their program, EDA, which serves adults with developmental disabilities. So we were super excited to participate in that way. We remain committed, I think, to the same goals that this board is committed to, and we're happy to be here today to honor individuals and businesses that also are committed to those goals. I, like Josh Kirby's, have brought beautiful certificates for the honorees, and I, of course, need to give a special shout out to Fire Station 7 and 8. Thank you to the men and women of county fire stations here in West Hollywood.
Hey.
We're so grateful for your service, and congratulations to all of the other honorees. This is what our certificates look like. I know they're so beautiful. Thank you so much for having me here tonight, and good luck for the rest of the Disabilities Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And we do have one more speaker right now, Kevin Kaplan.
Good evening. It's Keith Kaplan. That's okay. A West Hollywood resident for 32 years and chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the Disabilities Advisory Board for all of the incredible work you do throughout the city. And a special thanks to all of tonight's honorees who recognize the spirit of inclusiveness and who go above and beyond to recognize that all lives matter. You are all truly heroes. And on a personal note, you know, there are people in our lives who we cross paths with quite often. And there's a person in this town who always makes me feel warm and happy and at home, and who for me is part of West Hollywood, and that's Yola Dore, and I thank you for that.
Very. Are there any changes to the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Will we call?
We'll have a roll call on that. Board Member Doré?
Aye.
Board Member Hang?
Yes.
Board Member Nash?
Yes.
Board Member Renfrew?
Aye.
Board Member Simonko?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Watts?
Yes.
Vice Chair Freiberg?
Aye.
Chair Friedman?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, before we move into the awards portion of the evening, I want to tell you a little bit about the Disability Advisory Board's achievements this past year. This past year has been very active and productive for the board. Last Thursday, we had a disability resource fair, the very first disability resource fair, and we had a great turnout. Over 100 people came to get resources for people living with disabilities, to enroll in public benefits, to obtain legal advice, to learn about independent living, government benefits, and advocacy, and gadgetry that makes life easier for people who are living with disabilities. Cedars-Sinai also provided 65 flu shots to the community, so that was a wonderful thing for our community. In August, we held an outreach event at National Night Out where we tabled at the West Hollywood Gateway, and we talked to community members about social services programs. We have also provided valuable input to the Social Services Division on the community study and provided input on ways the city and the Disability Advisory Board can increase community awareness of existing mental health services and programming. Last December, the board held its annual study session and developed a list of desired design features to improve accessibility for new housing construction and renovations. The Housing Division staff will use this list when developing new products and communicating with the market rate developers to help our disabled population. So it's been a busy year, and I want to thank each and every one of the board members for their important contributions and their very hard work. And I also want to thank the City Council for their ongoing support of our endeavors. Thank you. We are now moving on to what you've all been waiting for. The 2018 Disability Service Awards presentations. First up, please welcome Mayor John Duran and Board Member David Nash to the podium to present the Business Award.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Disability Advisory Board. Before I get to the first award, I want to take a moment of privilege as the mayor of the city of West Hollywood to comment on the events of today. Today has been really a very difficult and extraordinary day, I think, for all of us as Americans. I never thought I would live to see the day where elected officials and government representatives in the United States would be receiving pipe bombs in the mail. It is an extraordinary day in our history when somehow that event has become just a normalized day in the United States of America. But what would we expect, given the rhetoric of the president, given the divisiveness, given the hatred, given the marginalization of so many communities that we here in West Hollywood hold true and dear? In this week, we have seen our transgender community under attack, being forced to pick one gender over the other, as if to be erased from the history books, or as if to erase all the efforts that they've made. We have seen in this week a continuing attack on our democracy, people being unregistered to vote, discouraged from voting, of exercising their basic American right to participate in the democratic process. And on top of all that, what we know about extremism and those that use extreme tactics is they attempt to dehumanize people as their first method of attack. And historically, not only LGBT people and immigrants and people who are of difference in their religiosity or their ethnicity, but people with disabilities have historically been attacked by those in the extreme right. How great is it that we live in a community where our politics, our political temperature, is not in any way related to or measured by or consistent with the politics of Washington, D.C. That in the city of West Hollywood, we celebrate our transgendered citizens, we celebrate those who are different, and we celebrate people who are living and participating in this community with disabilities. That is who we are. Those are our city's core values. Those are actually America's true values, and we just seem to be in a very dark period of dystopia right now, which is a reminder to me and to you and to all of us that the election is in 13 days. The election is in 13 days, an election that could actually set our course back on path to the values that celebrate diversity, celebrate the differences that we have, celebrate community, and celebrate people with disabilities. So to that end, thank you to the Disability Advisory Board. Thank you to all of you receiving awards and recognitions tonight. Thank you for your continuing contributions to not only people with disabilities, but all the people of the city of West Hollywood. We will get through this dark period, we will come out on the other end. And Trumpism and Donald Trump in no way dictates what our values are. And tonight is a very firm reminder of that. I'm here and I'm joined by David Nash, somebody I've known for over 20 years, and to present the very first Disability Service Award. And we are presenting the Business Service Award to 24 Hour Fitness. 24 Hour Fitness is a privately owned and operated fitness center headquartered in San Ramon, California, with more than 400 clubs across the United States. Also one of the largest fitness chains based on memberships with over 4 million clients across this country. 24 Hour Fitness in West Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard offers thousands of square feet of workout space, complete with premium gym equipment and some of the best studio classes in town. I have to admit, I haven't been there in 20 years, but I'm sure that's all happening. But I think David Nash probably works out there, so I'll let David take over.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor Duran. I have been a member of the fitness center for almost 20 years. It helped me stay in, whoops, I don't see so well. But I do belong to the fitness center, and it's helped me stay in shape for the last 20 years. I had hip replacement on October the 5th, and I can't tell you, as soon as my doctor allows, in 3 or 4 more weeks, I'm dying to get back in the beautiful pool at the fitness center and enjoy some hydrotherapy. And it's not just thousands of square feet, Mayor Duran, it's 77,000 square feet of fitness equipment. Very well maintained and staffed by some really nice people. I'm honored to be here as one of the community members that helps honor them and give them an award tonight that they very much deserve. Thank you.
I think that wanted to add to that the staff from 24 Hour Fitness, they go above and beyond in accommodating people with disabilities. Their personal trainers work with our diverse community, including people who have Alzheimer's, cerebral palsy, and other special needs. Lastly, in the recent remodel, there is now an electric lift that makes it possible for persons with mobility challenges to access the swimming pool. So on behalf of a grateful community and Disabilities Advisory Board, we'd like to welcome up Vanessa Perez, Laura Wooters, Roger Del Cruz, and Michael Martinez to accept the award for 24 Hour Fitness. You want us up there? David, bring the award over.
I'm going to say it.
Thank you to the board and the entire city of West Hollywood. It's an honor. We love serving the city, and thank you to the entire team at West Hollywood 24 Hour Fitness for their combined passion, fitness, and encouraging everyone, regardless of physical challenges, to reach their fitness goals. So thank you very much. We're extremely honored to receive this. Thank you.
Okay, I made a little mistake and I forgot a speaker, so I apologize, and I would like Genevieve Morale to come up. My fault.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome.
And Disability Board, Genevieve Morale, West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, President, CEO. And I'm very excited. I've spoken at these meetings a few times. We really look to try to see how the business community can continue to work with people challenged and how we can try to help them understand what they need to do in their businesses to make sure that everything's accessible and help out. But I'm here tonight specifically for these awards, and I want to just really applaud 24 Hour Fitness and the mayor, and basically, Mr. Nash and the mayor have really said everything about it, the work that they do. I know that they're also hiring a trainer recently with a disability, and so, and work with cerebral palsy, cystic fibrosis, seniors, et cetera. So I think 24 Hours is very deserving of this award. And I also don't think I probably have a chance after every award, so I will continue to also applaud my colleagues, my friends and colleagues at NBC, Southern California Channel 4, Robert Kavasik, Kim Dutton, Terry Hernandez, Carol. I mean, there's so many people that we work with, and NBC has been such an amazing partner in this community, so I just want to thank NBC as well. And then what can I say? I've been working with Fire Station 7 for over 18 years in this community, from when I did about 500 events a year at the PDC, probably, to the Chamber of Commerce now, and everything that they do to help the businesses get through that permitting process and to help us stay safe. And so thank you, Fire Station 7, for all your public safety. And finally, I didn't get a chance when Elizabeth Savage was retired at the city at her retirement party or at council to thank her for all her work that she's done. And we miss her, but she really has made significant changes in social services and was really a powerful leader for our community. And I want to thank her as well for her service. So thank you.
Well, it looks like we're going to thank her for you. Next, we have Councilmember Lauren Meister and Board Member Louise Smith presenting the Love D Bryant Differently Abled Award.
Thank you very much. You may not know, I do work out at 24 Hour Fitness. It may not show, but I do.
Aw.
Oh, thank you. The City of West Hollywood and its Disabilities Advisory Board is proud to present the 2018 Love D Bryant Differently Abled Individual Award to Elizabeth Savage. For those of you who didn't know Love D Bryant, she was a force to be reckoned with, and that's the reason that this award is going to Elizabeth Savage. Elizabeth recently retired after 22 years of service with the city. Her legacy and work for the city ensured access to critical services and affordable housing for the most vulnerable community members, including older adults, those with disabilities and chronic diseases, people living with HIV, lesbians and bisexual women, as well as community members struggling with poverty. Ms. Savage understood that growing older at any age can happen well, with safe and affordable housing and reduced social isolation by way of a vibrant, connected community. Now here's Louise.
As Director of Human Services and Rent Stabilization, Elizabeth was dedicated to the building a shared vision for Aging in Place, Aging in Communities strategic plan. The plan's goal is to increase the ability of older adults to live in their own homes and community, both safely, independently, and comfortably at different stages in their lives. With Elizabeth's leadership, the plan included the strong voice of the Disabilities Advisory Board and its areas of concern for accessibility and the inclusive design of public and residential buildings. Elizabeth shared a commitment to these areas of concern, as well as to the understanding of the diverse needs and abilities of West Hollywood's community's members. Thus, she receives the Love D Bryant Differently Abled Individual Award. Please welcome Ms. Savage to accept this award.
Here you go.
and feel this welcome. Thank you, Louise. Thank you all for this honor. Warren Meister, thank you for presenting the award, and thank you to the City Council, Disability Advisory Board members, and a special thank you to the staff of the city. I'd also like to extend special congratulations to Yola Dore and Annie Simonko, who received the Los Angeles County Commission on Disabilities Access Award last week. Well deserved. I'm honored to receive this award entitled the Love D Bryant Award. I knew Love D. She was herself all the time, in a most wonderful way. Notably, she was a tireless advocate for affordable housing and a Los Angeles Sparks fan. Those are big sneakers to fill. I have seen you, the Disability Advisory Board, grow in fulfilling your mission of advising the City Council on ability concerns. I read through your agendas for this last year. I wasn't here, so I had to read them. You provide your input on a variety of issues. You worked on transit, special needs for disabled folks with emergency preparedness, legislative issues, homelessness, housing and rent stabilization, mental health services, and accessibility of public buildings in the urban setting and in the parks. Good work. I am grateful that I worked at the city and had a hand in building a more connected community, including through wellness education. Social isolation is a big deal, and I am glad you are in the mix on that also. Now back at home, I can put my own wellness into practice. I am walking outdoors a lot, reading more, always nonfiction, political stuff. Okay, that's me. Not mysteries. And I am working also on civic engagement and having quality time with my spouse, Roxy. Thank you for coming here tonight. In closing, and on another topic, Michael Moore said recently, beware of protest fatigue. I know that you will vote, but please do more. Call, write, speak up, especially at the level of the federal government. Together, we will not be silent. Thank you.
The next award of the evening is the Nonprofit Award. Councilmember Lindsay Horvath and Board Member Joy Freiberg will be presenting the award. Please welcome them to the podium.
Good evening, everyone, and I want to also congratulate you on a year's worth of accomplishments, but the daily service that you provide to our community is unparalleled, and I want to thank you all for your dedication and all that you contribute to our community. It's my pleasure to be here tonight with you, and especially to present this award. When you enter elected office, you have lots of responsibilities, one of which, and I think the most important of which, is public safety. And so to get a better understanding of how it all works, sometimes you do a ride-along. In my first term of elected office, I was able to do a ride-along with our fire station, and Fire Station 7, actually. And it was very interesting because normally when you do a ride-along, I hear that it's very uneventful. That was not the case for me. As soon as I walked in the station door, they said, "Put on your jacket, we gotta go, there's a call." And there was an unfortunate circumstance on Fairfax where they had gotten there in time to make sure everyone was safe. There was one person who they transported to the hospital. I was in the ambulance with the firefighter the paramedic who was able to speak to the person who was injured. He only spoke Spanish, and because this person was able to speak Spanish, the survivor of this fire was able to feel cared for and supported in that transport, was able to have those injuries appropriately addressed at Cedars, and was very grateful for the service of our fire department, our paramedics, and how they responded to take care of him in this situation. situation. So I have witnessed firsthand just how incredible their service is. So they are most deserving of this award, and I am glad that the board is presenting them with this tonight. The City of West Hollywood and our Disabilities Advisory Board is proud to present the 2018 Disability Service Award for Nonprofit to the Los Angeles County Fire Department, Stations 7 and 8. The mission of the LA County Fire Department is to protect lives, the environment, and property by providing skillful, cost-effective fire protection and life safety services. The department is responsible for over 4 million residents and over 1.2 million housing units spread across the county. The fire department has a rich and unique history, which is full of innovation and daring accomplishments. From designing the 911 system and initiating a paramedic program in the 1970s, to the current-day urban search and rescue section, the department is a leader and a model to fire departments around the world.
The department's ability to develop new techniques and equipment to fight fires of all kinds has benefited not only the residents, but fire service in general. In addition to being first responders in fires, disasters, and other emergency situations, fire personnel respond to individual crisis situations. Our fire stations 7 and 8 are witness to our community members' most vulnerable moments, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People with disabilities in this city can credit the firefighters with providing critical services that enhance safety, enable people to live independently in their own homes. I know that some of my fellow board members have personally called on the firefighters, and they are so grateful for both departments. Accepting the 2018 Disability Service Award in the nonprofit category are representatives from Fire Stations 7 and 8, along with Battalion Chief John Mancha and Assistant Chief Anthony Williams. Welcome them to the podium.
Just hold that county scroll up real high.
And then I can't see you in the back. There we go. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Oh, I can't see you back there. Yeah, okay. Sorry. All right, here we go. Okay, last one. Good. Thank you.
Yay!
Good evening. What an honor. Thank you very much. I thank the Disabilities Advisory Board very much. That means a lot to us. I just got here in April, and I really have noticed just the great support that the fire department has, and it's much appreciated. So on behalf of Station 7 and Station 8, your West Hollywood, LA County Fire Department stations, on behalf of Chief Williams, who could not be here, the LA County Fire Department itself, including our Fire Chief, Darrell Osby, thank you very much.
Okay, how you doing? Next on the agenda is the Media Award. And before we present the award, we would like to show the news segment that inspired so many of us on the panel.
The artist at work. Focused, expressing himself with paint and brush. No chance for a conversation. 21-year-old Nicholas Contaxis has very little to say. He can barely communicate. Diagnosed with an extensive brain tumor at the age of 15 months, Nikki is autistic. Seizures come and go now daily. But physical challenges don't get in the way of Nicky's calling as an artist. Since he was a little boy in Palm Springs, a big Greek family providing plenty of support and encouragement as Nicky pursues his passion. But is this passion a path to perhaps something more? The path runs from Palm Springs to chic Melrose Avenue. Here, the art of Nicholas Contaxis lines the walls of the DeRose Gallery. It is the opening night of a public exhibit, and it is transformative.
It's the way that he can communicate. Through his paintings, we can see who he is and understand what an amazing person he is.
What he's thinking about and how he expresses himself.
Nicky is being heard.
This is his voice, and he's found his connection to people, and people have found their connection to him.
And Jenny and his proud parents
I'm excited. It's exciting.
embracing Nicky's suddenly expanding world.
Obviously, his work is speaking at some level, and his story is speaking.
As the room is all abuzz about him.
I love this art.
It's happy and it brings joy.
I think it's incredibly inspiring. Actually, I have goosebumps just being here and looking at it.
The artist himself remains a man of few words, but it doesn't matter.
Whatever's coming out in his mind is putting it out on the paper. And
Elise taking a Contaxis home.
this connected with me when I walked by it because of the colors. It just kind of lights up a room.
I wasn't planning on buying anything until I got here, and once I did, I knew I had to get something.
Dr. Dennis Evangelos sharing what spoke to him and what didn't.
It wasn't the title that got me, I can tell you that.
Nicky's titles are unique.
A mouse in the chair.
Like the art itself. Bold and adventurous creations by Nicholas Contaxis, an artist and a young man communicating on canvas.
All these years we thought, oh, he's not really present. He can't connect. And he has been, probably more so than many of us do. This was his miraculous way of expressing it.
In West Hollywood, Robert Kovacic, NBC4 News.
To see more of Nicholas's amazing artwork, go to the NBCLA app or NBCLA.com for a link.
Please welcome Mayor Pro Tempore John D'Amico and Board Member Yola Dore to the podium to present the Media Award.
Good evening. One of the things I love most about this commission, this board, and this event is that I myself was a Disability Advisory Board member in 1994, I think for about 2.5 years, and you know, we had different challenges in the 90s around access for people with HIV, and we were redoing Santa Monica Boulevard and how to make sure that that was a successful adventure in reshaping the main street of our city, and certainly the hard work you all are doing now in this era of 2018 is just an extraordinary continuation of what you know, the city started 35 years ago. So, and I want to now move to talking about Robert and NBC4. You know, every time I look up, Robert is here whenever there's something exciting happening in the city. One time I was in drag and there he was, ready to interview me, and other times at other events, at Pride, at other things that bring out our community, not unlike the video we just saw. And the City of West Hollywood and its Disabilities Advisory Board are pleased to honor NBC4 Los Angeles with the Community Participation and Disability Services Award for Media. NBC has a legacy of community participation, and the station supports many social causes, including health and wellness, the environment, homelessness, veterans, and at-risk youth. The station produces a series of captivating news segments called Life Connected that chronicles the ways people come together to inspire and support each other. Life Connected celebrates the diverse communities of Southern California by telling meaningful stories of individuals and embracing their triumphs.
Thank you. I look forward to Life Connected and seeing the many diverse programs they've aired. But I really have to tell you, anchor reporter Robert Kovacic's take on Nicholas's life stopped me in my tracks. It was a beautiful, heartwarming story about an artist who spoke with his brush, who was able to communicate with the world better than most of us. That in itself is amazing. So I would like to thank Robert, NBC LA, and Nicholas for being part of this wonderful story and really a breathtaking story of abilities. And that was the impetus in nominating NBC. It spoke to the positive side of what people can do, what many do that have disabilities. So it's just looking at the positive side of life. I'd like to take a moment now to ask Mr. Kovacic, Kim Dutton of NBC LA. I'd like to invite Nicholas Kontaxis and his aunt, Jenny Poulos, to the podium, along with Mayor Pro Tem D'Amico and the Disabilities Advisory Board. We'd like to present you with a recognition of service, and we'd like to give a special recognition to Nicholas this evening. That's so good. Can you pass this to my chair? There's the phone.
Nicholas, congratulations. Super amazing. Really amazing.
This is for Nicholas. It's a beautiful plaque with beautiful colors, Nicholas. And this is for Nicholas, and it's a gorgeous award from the County of Los Angeles, commending the exemplary work he's done on that canvas. Thank you. So, Nick, can you hold this for a picture with your family? Come on, come on. Come on, get in this photo here. And this is for the award-winning journalist who brought us this story, Robert Kovacic. And for Kim Dutton of the Community Affairs Office, we ask you to stand and recognize all of them. Thank you very much. Have a word. After we get some pictures. And please, this.
Do these first, or should we?
Say some remarks. Photos first? Okay.
Sure.
Wait till you see this year's costume.
Oh, everybody, while you're waiting, I would be derelict as a journalist not to tell you that the Dodgers are winning.
Yay!
Now talk amongst yourselves. Are we going to make it through?
Okay, right here, please. Right here, please. Last one. Thank you.
Okay, now for me. Wait, no, go ahead. Okay, so everybody here? Okay, great, wonderful. And one last. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Now, would you like to say a few words?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. NBC4 is very honored to receive this award this evening, so thank you so much. As you mentioned earlier, the station is very proud of the Life Connected franchise, which allows our newsroom the opportunity to tell important stories of people that do come together to make a positive difference in their community. I think you saw that in this story tonight. Want to turn it over now to Robert Kovacic to say a few words about the story and what it means to him.
Get that 2-minute timer going. First of all, I just want you all to know that one of the reasons that we're here so much is because Yola Doré, she doesn't realize it, but at NBC4, she is considered our West Hollywood bureau chief. If anything happens in West Hollywood, no joke, there could be a robbery, there could be a fire. She is truly the first person to let me know. So Yola, thank you. I love and adore you. And NBC, I don't know, we would not be here nearly enough if it wasn't for you. And to the Disabilities Advisory Council, thank you all. This means a lot to us, and West Hollywood means a lot to us, and to Councilmember Horvath, Councilmember D'Amico, Councilmember Duran, Councilmember Meister. Heilman's not here, so I don't have to thank him, do I? Okay. Forget John. You all do so much to make West Hollywood welcoming and to not only celebrate diversity, but to celebrate disabilities. And it does not go unnoticed to any of us in the media. So it really is a privilege to be here. And one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be here representing this story that has garnered so much attention. We have an Emmy nomination for this story. We have this prestigious award to thank you for it. But just quickly, this is a story that almost didn't come to fruition because when we do Life Connected, we go to our producers and we say for this sponsored segment, oh, we have this great idea for a story. Here's someone who's connecting with someone in the community. Unlikely connections are made. Well, I went and pitched this story about this incredible artist who is someone that we're going to know years after we're all gone. And I said, and I think he's communicating through Canvas. And they said, well, is he? And I said, well, we're going to find out in West Hollywood. And it was a chance we took, and it was a chance that came to fruition because, and I think from the bottom of my heart, because it happened here. So thank you. Thank you, West Hollywood, because I think you helped give Nicky his voice.
Yay!
Mic drop. And with that said, none of this would have happened if Nicky's aunt and my very dear friend would not have come to me and said, wait till you meet my nephew. So with that said, can I just bring up Jenny Poulos so she can say a few words for us? Thank you.
Thank you to the board, to my dear friend, Robert Kovacic, who this wouldn't be possible, and to NBC, and to Kim. And again, thank you for, yes, giving Nicky his voice in such a beautiful city and what you've done in so many ways with acceptance and inclusion and celebrating disability, because my nephew Nicholas Contaxis is a survivor. He is the kindest man I've ever met. He doesn't take no for an answer, and neither does his beautiful parents. You know, it takes a village as a parent myself, and support is everything. And they have supported him when he was told he would be institutionalized. They made their home an institution. They made art a celebration, and he feels that. And the way that Robert and all of you included him and gave him a chance. He is breaking the glass ceiling, as everyone in this room is, with saying this is not disability, this is ability. The mind is a very fascinating thing. And that boy's mind, my nephew, my survivor, my hero, it's working and it's creating and it has a voice and a life of its own. He's painted over 170 paintings and counting. He just sold 5 to Roger Federer, for you sports fans out there. And yes, and we have a big show coming up in Chicago, another show in the spring here in Los Angeles that I hope you all will be in attendance at. And I just want to champion that it's not about disability, it's about ability, it's about possibility, and it's about kindness. And never mistake kindness for weakness, because that man is kind, and that man is going to and already has achieved so much. So thank you from my family, from myself, and to Robert and to NBC who made it all possible, as did you.
The last presentation of the awards portion of our meeting will be a special recognition of disabilities advocate and former senior advisory board member Rita Norton, who passed away recently. Board member Rick Watts and Yola Duray will share a few words and present the award to her daughter, Marcy Norton.
Good evening. We're presenting something quite unique this evening. It's an award being given posthumously to a woman whose gift was incomparable. And the woman I'm speaking of is Rita Norton. Our love, our librarian, the lady who kept us laughing. She was a grandmother, a grand community member. She was an advocate for disabilities before it was in vogue. And it all started when her daughter Marcy was very, very young. To tell the story briefly, Marcy was about 3 years old. And one morning, about 5:30 in the morning, little Marcy trots into our parents' room and she says, "Wake up, Mommy, wake up." And Rita woke up and said, "It's 5:30 in the morning." So little Marcy wasn't concerned with that. She said, "But who are we going to help today? Who are we going to help today?" That started years ago in a different community. This lady was helping persons with disabilities for years and being a grand volunteer and community servant wherever they lived, from DC to Champaign, Illinois, to Norfolk, to Los Angeles. We were lucky to get them.
In the 1980s and 90s, a dark shadow began to fall over West Hollywood. It ultimately cost us over 10,000 of our own citizens just in West Hollywood, and hundreds of thousands of fellow Americans. The disease of AIDS and HIV. Rita Norton, as a long-time volunteer and then employee of our library when it was just comparatively speaking, a little box next door, took it upon herself, doing what she knew to be right and having compassion on all of these people that she saw getting sick and dying without hope. Rita put together a hotline direct from the library to the Centers for Disease Control for library patrons and anybody in West Hollywood that was dealing with that disease, either as a patient or as a caregiver, to get the latest information possible. Because keep in mind, back then, there was no internet, so this was the best that could be done. She also curated a special collection of books and publications that were constantly updated. As someone who myself has been HIV positive since, I believe, 1983, two of those with full-blown AIDS from 96 to 98. In the early 90s, again, pre-internet for me, that was support and knowledge of what we heard on the news and support from one another. That was basically all that we had, was hope, because there just really weren't good medications, or we would find out about these new medications that were coming along the line and try to hang in there and give each other a hug and try to hang in there, give us hope. Rita did that. And there are a lot of us that are still here because of that. Even after that shadow began to recede, and Rita's years continued to advance, she went on to other things, serving our city's senior advisory board. It's no secret that persons who are seniors and persons with disabilities share a lot in common. At one point or another, God willing, we're all going to be old. At one point or another, we're almost all going to be dealing with disabilities of one type or another. And Rita continued serving in that capacity, and even right up to her final days, she and Marcy, with a charity by the name of Wells Bring Hope, bringing hope to people overseas who need clean water. Thank you, Rita. We miss you, but your legacy lives on.
Now, we'd like to ask Marcy Norton, Rita's daughter, to approach the podium to accept this award for her petunia. And for Rita, we shall ask you all to rise, please.
Thank you,
Last one. Thank you.
Bravo.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of this very, very important board, to our city, and to everybody that you benefit with your work, your knowledge, your care, your concern, and your encouragement. I want to thank you very much for honoring my mother in this way. I can tell you that she would have been extremely, well, knowing my mother, first of all, she wouldn't have understood why you were honoring her because whatever she did, she thought it's just what you do. You care about your fellow man and woman. If you have abilities that you can do things that help them, that's what you do. I was saying at her funeral recently that when I was 11 years old, I got my autograph book as a present. It was the first one I'd ever had, and I asked my parents if they would be the first to write in it. And on the first page of that autograph book, which I still have, my mother wrote a short, sweet, well-known phrase that I think she had lived her life by, and that she wanted to encourage me to live mine by, and that was, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that was it. That was the path that she set for me all those years ago. She thought the work that this board in particular does was so moving and important and meaningful that there were very few of these disability awards events that she ever missed, and the only ones she ever missed was in her final years. A couple of times she was in the hospital and wasn't able to make it. But it would have really, really meant so much to her that you were honoring her. Both Rick and Yola have told you a lot of the sorts of things she did, and I thank both of you for your very loving tributes to her. A lot of the stuff that I had written down actually were some of the same things that you talked about. From the time I was young, she was an incredible role model. She had a very dear friend who, at an early age, tragically had a rupture in her optic nerve and was blind for the rest of her life. And my mother made her work schedule at the library to take into account each week. She would alternate being off on Saturday or Friday so that she could spend the day off with her friend Sally. And Yola talked about mom's very funny sense of humor. So she would visit Sally every week, and they would talk about current events and what was going on in the news and what was going on in their families. And one day, after this had been going on for many years, Sally said to her, "Rita, I have to ask you something a little weird." And Mom said, "Sure, what is it?" And she said, "Well, I know that when I hear my children's voices, I picture them the last way I ever saw them, like 5 years old in kindergarten. And I know they have the voices of adults, and I know they tell me about their lives and they're living like adults. And the same thing with my husband. When I hear his voice, I picture him as the handsome young soldier going off to World War II. And I know he's much older than that now, since he's already retired. But she said, as hard as I try, I certainly know your voice. I know when you walk in the door, it's you. But I just can't picture, I don't have a picture of what you look like." And my mother, without missing a beat, said to her, "Sally, do you remember the gorgeous actress Dolores Del Rio?" And Sally said, "Yes, and that's not it." So my mother, once she got to West Hollywood, served on more planning bodies and task forces and boards and everything that she possibly could to help. But one of the things that she seemed to have helped a lot with, and until I started thinking about the fact that you were giving her this award, it hadn't really dawned on me just how much she focused on disabilities and the abilities which go with them. So I had just jotted down some things where she always volunteered to be involved in task forces and bodies that were involved in choosing appropriate transportation and furniture for the disabled and library equipment and she helped put together a very extensive collection of large print books because we had a lot of requests for that in the neighborhood. She, of course, had done all of the things that Rick talked about in terms of the AIDS community. And just in terms of her cute little self, as she got older, she started to have mobility problems because of arthritis in her knee, and it would give way without warning. And so at first she had to use a cane, and then she went on to using a walker. And Another venerated icon of the community who you probably will all know, Jean Dobrin, has told me on many, many times that she admired my mother so much. And did I know why? And I said, well, I guess she's worth admiring. She does good things. She's bright. She's a good librarian. And Jean said, no, 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 we know all that stuff. The reason I admire her so much is because she is such a wonderful role model for aging gracefully and staying active. The reason I admire her so much is that she uses her cane and her walker because she needs it, and she's not embarrassed to do that. Jean said to me, personally, I need to do that too, but I'm too vain, and so she fell down a lot. That always struck me as somehow so funny, but it was also true that my mother was a great role model for aging gracefully. She was a little fashionista. She loved wearing clothes and jewelry and makeup and taking care of herself. And she was very active right up until almost the end. She was still going to city council meetings and the senior advisory board meetings, even when she was no longer on the board. And she, at one time, she said that that the one thing she had learned from her mother was not to listen to her, because her mother was a very determined person. She was a good person, but she was very focused on what was important to her. And so she would, when Mom would start talking about, oh, we need to help this person, or oh my God, is that a fire down the street? We need to call the fire department or whatever. Her mother's answer or response was always, Rita, mind your own business. I take care of my house, my family, my office, and let everybody else take care of themselves. And she was proud of it. And so Mom, at one point, when she was being honored on another occasion,
Marcy, I'm really sorry to interrupt
I'm
you.
on the last sentence.
Okay, thank you.
When she was being honored at another occasion, she said that it meant a great deal to her to be honored as you're doing tonight for not having paid any attention to her mother and for having gotten involved in helping people in every way she could. Thank you very much.
That concludes the awards portion of our program tonight, of our agenda. And let's all give all the honorees a huge round of applause. We have plenty more to discuss, and we have three wonderful speakers. Our first speaker is going to give us a very exciting presentation. His name is Dr. Charles Liu. And I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Charles Liu. And he's amazing. He won't tell you that, but I'll tell you that. PhD in chemical and bioengineering before attending medical school and completing his neurosurgical training. Professor at the University of Southern California, Director of USC Neurorestoration Center, Director of Neuro Recovery Integrated Care Team, and Chair of Neurosurgery and Orthopedics. Published literature and delivered keynote lectures nationally and internationally. Editor-in-chief of the Journal of Clinical Neuroscience. He directs research projects with private and public health systems in underserved communities. And that's just a little bit of what he does. In other words, this wonderful doctor-scientist helps people with debilitating spinal, brain, and nervous system disorders to live and function again. So this man, he's a rock star in his field. We are so lucky to have him as our keynote speaker tonight, talking about technology and restoring neurological function. Please welcome the amazing Dr. Charles Liu.
Wow, on that note, listen, first of all, it is really an honor to be asked to speak to this council tonight. I'm really humbled. I want to begin by congratulating all the award winners. They're really amazing to listen to the stories. It is really humbling to see what other people have done. I'm here tonight representing two institutions. The first one is the University of Southern California, where I'm a professor and director of the Neurorestoration Center, but I'm also here representing the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services, Rancho Los Amigos National Rehabilitation Center. And you may have heard of Rancho, but Rancho is really a very special place in the history of taking care of people with challenges greater than our own. And it's really unique in that it is one of the very few highest level rehabilitation resources for everybody, irrespective of socioeconomic circumstance. I think that we're here talking about human disabilities and challenges that make it difficult for some of us to get through our daily lives. And what I love about human disabilities and these challenges, whether they're congenital or acquired, whether they come from trauma or just the natural process of aging, as other speakers have pointed out tonight, these are problems that are of general relevance to all of us, and they really transcend all geopolitical discussions. And I am delighted to be able to spend my life working on these problems that are relevant to everybody on Earth. I focus on the brain, and I'm always fond of saying that the brain and the nervous system makes humans unique, and therefore the problems that arise when things don't go perfectly generate problems that are uniquely human. As I sit through the initial part of the program, what continues to strike me over and over is that I'm immersed in solving the problems that we're talking about from a scientific and medical perspective. But throughout human history, we've always solved our problems looking at two facets. There's always the human side of the solution and then the scientific, technical side of the solution. So I'm going to speak for the next 10 minutes a little bit about what science and medicine is doing to create new tools to allow those of us that suffer challenges and disabilities to transcend those. And I look forward to continuing to learn from all of you, in particular those of us that have challenges greater than mine, about the human facets of our problem. So, disclosures, I think it's important that I don't take any money from anybody, myself personally. We have a lot of research funds, and I think it's very important to disclose that up front. We have funding from federal agencies, and the University of Southern California is very generous in funding us. I always like to mention that the approach to solving a lot of these problems, in my view, the most effective combination is going to be a combination of engineering and medicine. These problems that we're dealing with have medical components, but human beings have always solved our problems by engineering solutions to these problems. And this image that I have up here is actually a historical image, and the person in the middle is my PhD thesis advisor, and his name is David Helms, and he was actually one of the key engineers to the artificial heart project that was led by Dr. Michael DeBakey back in Houston in the 1960s, and you see components of the artificial heart that was being designed to treat these medical problems. So this is some of the very early work on combining engineering and medicine. So what is neurorestoration? Neurorestoration, I guess the best way to explain that is through an analogy or metaphor. Imagine if we had a car and we get in a car accident. That's something that a lot of us have been involved in, right? And so when you get in a car wreck, there's several ways you can deal with it. The first way is to repair it, right? The car is repairable. When it comes to the nervous system in the body, what we're talking about here is the regenerative medicine. We've heard about stem cells and things that we can do to repair the damage. The alternative, if your car is completely, is not reparable, right? what we do is we replace it, right? And in this paradigm, we're talking about using a scientific approach that is not intuitive, but replaces the function in a way that's acceptable. Best example I can think of is human beings have wanted to fly, so we don't grow wings, right? What we do is we build a plane that leverages the same scientific principles of differential airflow over a wing that creates lift. So in a very different way than the birds fly, we too fly. So that's the sort of the replace concept. And then the last is this optimization concept. What I love about the human body and the brain is that it's massively redundant and massively parallel, right? So can we optimize what we have left after injury? And that's the sort of the third aspect of this restoration. So I think that I'm convinced that if you take the repair, the replace, and the optimize concepts and you put them together, there's a chance, theoretically, of reconstituting all of the function that we've lost. So let's talk a little bit about stem cells and regenerative medicine. I mean, this is everybody's heard of stem cells, right? Stem cells is probably where we first began to think about the possibility of restoring function to the nervous system when I went to medical school in the 90s. We were taught that the human nervous system had no way of being repaired after it was damaged, right? And it was in the realm of regenerative medicine that this first concept emerged. Now, this is probably one of the areas that is the most tightly regulated areas of research there can be. In California, we created the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine to fund this type of research when these discussions became a little bit painful nationally. And I've done research in this area and I've spoken about it, but it wasn't until 1996 that I did my first injections of these stem cells into the cervical spinal cord of a patient. So now there are other studies that are ongoing, and stem cells are being put into the brain for stroke restoration and so on and so forth. And it all seemed to be happening in the last few years. So after decades, and the regulatory process is critically necessary because we're putting in cells that don't just sit there. You're putting them in so that they'll turn into something. What they turn into is incredibly important, right? For us to understand that, first do no harm, right? And you see in this image, this is a kid, Chris Bosen, 21 years old, and he got into a car accident. And he was the first person in the state of California ever to receive stem cells into a cervical spinal cord after spinal cord injury. And this is a great photo, right? The image is great. And what I love about Chris is that he's a kid from Bakersfield. Kids from Bakersfield don't get these things. They usually come from New York, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, right? And the public attention surrounding this has really, really been intense. Second concept that I want to talk about is the idea of replace, right? This is the analogy of the flying with an airplane rather than growing wings and flapping is the idea of replacing function that's lost. In very many circumstances, whether the brain is directly injured or the spinal cord is injured, a big part of the brain is left intact and it's good. The brain interacts with our external environment through the body. So, if we can directly decode the thoughts that are ongoing in the brain, can we use these thoughts to control external devices so that we don't have to be limited by the dysfunction of not being able to control our body? So this is the idea called brain-computer interfaces. So some of this work that I'll describe has been work that's been done with many scientific collaborators, including Richard Anderson, who's at the California Institute of Technology. And here's an example of these little microelectrode arrays. These are little tiny electrodes. They are 4 millimeters by 4 millimeters. They're 96 little microwires that are put into the brain of a human patient. And this is probably the most famous person in Rancho right now. In fact, when you go to Rancho, and I really encourage you guys to come and visit us, when you go to Rancho now, you'll see his image etched in glass and the new art that's on the new building. Rancho has just been rebuilt for $425 million. It's a wonderful thing, and you see his images up there. But what you see in this picture is that there are two microelectrode arrays on Eric's head. And through these connections to his brain directly, he could control a robotic device to drink a beer. And so this is an image of the brain-computer interface laboratory at Rancho Los Amigos. And for those of you who like Grey's Anatomy, you know, they came and did a show on this, and Dr. McDreamy inserted microelectrode arrays into the brain of human patient. And so these are what his thoughts look like. And each electrode is recording from the neurons, the cells that are firing when he performs an action. And we decode that to allow the, can you play that video real quickly? I just want to show this video, if it's possible to show. So we asked Eric what he wanted to do. And you know, Eric has complete spinal cord injury at C4. He can't move anything. He's in a motorized wheelchair. You can see he has a tracheostomy.
That's cool.
So he's doing this just with his thoughts. So we asked him.
Hey, you finished that thing off. And that's how science is made.
Eric just wanted to do one thing by himself, right? I'll never complain again.
There you go.
Okay.
Did it!
Let me go back to the slides. So this is an example of direct brain control of a robot to take a sip of beer. I asked Eric, why does it have to be beer? Can't it be a beverage? He goes, no, I want a beer. And actually made the top 10 ways to enjoy a cold beer because it came out right before Memorial Day. So what about walking, right? The wheelchair is the universal symbol of disability. And so using the same concepts of decoding the thoughts associated with walking and using those thoughts to control a wearable robot exoskeleton, you can wear it, sort of like version 1.0 of an Iron Man suit. We can decode the thoughts associated with walking, and this video is not going to play, but it really just shows the patient's thoughts being decoded. And so I want to sort of point out this gal here. It's always about the patient, right? This is Cynthia Ramirez, and she's a patient at Rancho Los Amigos, and you can see me, I'm laughing. And I'll tell you the reason I'm having such a good time laughing was I asked her what she wanted to work on, and she said, you know, I'm interested in fashion. And she said, why do all these assistive devices have to be so, like, ugly? Right? Why can't we make them stylish, right? And this is why I was laughing so hard as I'm walking with her. She's paralyzed from the waist down, and she's only able to walk because of this exoskeleton that she's wearing. So we now have a $8 million grant from the National Science Foundation to develop a wearable robot exoskeleton that's integrated with the brain. Last sort of concept I wanted to just sort of highlight is the optimization concept. So anybody who's ever been to a rehab unit knows that, for example, if you have a stroke and your left arm doesn't work, the therapists are using your arm, right? But that's great because you're hacking into the circuit by moving the arm, but the problem's actually here, right? So can we imagine a way to stimulate the brain, modulate the brain, so that you have a push-pull phenomenon coming up, right? And this is the new concepts associated with neurorehabilitation where brain modulation is a very significant part. And examples of this would be the NextStim trial, and again, you know, look at the scientific technology. This is the same technology that I use in the operating room when I'm taking out brain tumors and doing epilepsy surgery. But we're using this to stimulate the brain, and the patient has their head completely intact without any incisions made on them. And so the information that one can acquire from the function of the brain can be acquired non-invasively. This is an EEG of a person. Does anybody know what an EEG is? It's basically electrodes that are placed in the brain that record the electrical potentials that are going on. That's actually my brain. And you can use mathematics to understand what information lies in these oscillations that seem random, and actually use electromagnetic potentials to tune the brain to optimize the pull as we're doing the push with the rehabilitation. So, of course, this work represents the work of lots and lots of people. We collaborate with numerous institutions nationally, internationally, local, medical institutions, as well as scientific entities. And I really want to acknowledge all of them at this point. Thank you very much.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Liu. He's the man. Are there some questions from board members? Let's start on this side. Board Member Nash.
Board Member Nash, I don't know how well any of you see. I don't see so well. This little presentation, can you see the tears? Can you see the tears, anybody? Not gonna dry, I'm not ashamed. I'd like to know at a later time what the latest state of the art treatment is in stem cell research for people with deficiency of optic nerve endings. And just thank you for your presentation. It was very inspiring, uplifting. Continue the good work. Thank you very much.
Board Member Hang.
Thank you, Doctor, for the wonderful presentation and the wonderful work that you do with USC as well as LA County. Thank you.
Board Member Watts.
To persons who suffered traumatic injuries, brain injuries, or other, don't give up. There is hope on the horizon. When my mom had a lot of damage from a stroke and brain surgery back even 40 years ago, she lost her ability to play the piano. It was still locked up here, but it didn't make it down to here. But she never gave up. She sat down at the piano every day and tried to. She was determined she was going to have to just relearn it. But one day she sat down and it was like somebody plugged in that last wire and it all flowed, all the Bach and Beethoven. So it does happen. There is hope. Don't give up.
Board Member Semenko.
Thank you, Dr. Liu, for showing us all the innovations. I've known about a lot of these for a number of years because I've worked with the cerebral palsy clinic at UCLA. But it's inspiring because since I was born in 1951, they told me that I wouldn't walk. And there is a possibility to walk. Thank you.
Dr. Liu, I made a mistake. Board Member Nash had asked you a question about what you were doing for the optic nerve, and I didn't give you a chance to answer that question. I apologize.
Yeah, there is a lot of work in the regenerative medicine realm in all of these areas, all the organ systems. I focused mainly on the brain and the spinal cord. My colleague at USC, Dr. Mark Hamayan, is doing some excellent work when it comes to regenerative medicine related to vision restoration. I think that in every single one of these fronts, things are moving forward. And I think that, the way I sort of see it is that you have to hit a certain escape velocity for things to take off, and until you hit it, you don't think that you're going anywhere because you're not, right? And then as soon as you hit it, things will accelerate. So I'm very optimistic about all of these human clinical trials that are moving forward. I am very glad that the regulatory process was there in place to protect us all, right? Because I think that everybody recognizes that if you go too fast, you might fall, and if the fall is significant enough, the whole programs get sort of tabled, right? And so I think that whether it's the eye or the ears, the brain, skin, right, the organ systems, pancreas, I mean, these are bone and cartilage. I mean, think about how much human disability comes from musculoskeletal degeneration, right? These are all areas where active research is ongoing.
Board Member DeRay?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm inspired to listen to you. I hope we can make a field trip maybe one day. I think it would be a grand experience for all of us. I have just one question. If we are able to arrange it, will you be there to take us through and show us everything? Just think on it. You don't have to answer tonight. Thank you so much.
Board Member Renfrew?
I personally have a background in public health, and I'm in awe of what you're doing. And I also have a cervical spine that's in very bad shape. And so on a personal level, if I could speak with you privately, I'd be very honored.
Sure, it'd be my pleasure.
Board Member Smith? Oh, I'm sorry, were you finished speaking?
No, yeah, I am.
Dr. Liu, thank you very much for both an enlightening presentation. And as a patient that has been treated at Rancho through their post-polio clinic, I can attest to how valuable a resource the county has, and actually really all of California has the National Rehabilitation Center and it is available to everybody, whether they're able to pay or not. They do tremendous things, and now when we have this emergence of a new similar, whatever it is, it's causing paralysis, similar to poliomyelitis, there's probably even more need for, hopefully, some regeneration of the nerve endings. Again, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that, I was just thinking about the question you asked was about coming down and doing a tour. I think it would be my pleasure to show you. Rancho is finally has the facilities that it's been needing for a while, and it looks absolutely wonderful, and it would be a nice time to visit.
Vice Chair Freiberg?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for your presentation, Dr. Liu.
Welcome.
And it sounds like we forced you into a tour at this moment.
On the spot.
Hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. It'd be my pleasure. Great.
I want to thank you very much for coming, and it was fascinating. I lost my arm 25 years ago, and I still feel it, and I know that's because of the brain. And I just think the brain is amazing. We haven't even nearly tapped it, but your regenerate, you know what I mean. Yeah. Work is fabulous. Thank you so much. Let's give them a huge round of applause. You were fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Liu. I'd like to invite Board Member Danny Hang to introduce our next distinguished presenter.
Our next distinguished presenter is Dr. John Pinus, PhD. Dr. Pinus is an internationally recognized expert in home modification and fall prevention, as well as the development and analysis of policies and programs related to housing, long-term care, and aging in place. He went to Harvard for his undergraduate, master's, and his PhD. However, he did find his way back home to USC, Harvard of the East. He is an esteemed professor of gerontology, policy, and planning at the University of Southern California. He is also director of the National Resource Center on Supportive Housing and Home Modification and co-director of the Fall Prevention Center of Excellence. He spent his career researching, writing, and advising across all sectors, including the government and nonprofit organizations, about housing and long-term care for older adults, and he has written and edited 6 books on housing and older people. On a more personal note, I was fortunate enough to be a student of Dr. Pinus at USC in his Gero 540 Public Policy and Aging class. He had a reputation amongst the students as an expert in the field, but one where we felt comfortable seeking guidance, advice, and clarification from. He always made time for his students and helped us to connect to the literature, and for that, I say thank you. Please join me in welcoming a highly distinguished professor, scholar, and mentor to many, Dr. John Pinus.
Got two people from USC here tonight, even though we're closer to UCLA. It's hard to be the last speaker after a wonderful event of tremendous awards, very moving, and my fellow professor speaking about very scientific issues. I'm going to try to bring us sort of down to earth in a way. But I've had a long connection with West Hollywood. I did a study of the first AIDS housing complex built here, which was quite a while ago. I've worked with alternative living for the aging on projects over the years, and I always take my students to see the shared living arrangement there. And I'm very familiar with the Home Secure program, which is a really wonderful one and a tremendous asset to the city. And I want to commend the work that's been done on aging in place in West Hollywood and the age-friendly community efforts. They are stellar. They make every other one look like they're just at the beginning of thinking about it. So I'm happy to be here, and I will share with you some of my thoughts and some pictures and images, because housing is something you can see and touch. And I hope I'll give you some new ideas and in some ways reinforce what you're already doing well here. So this is a house not in West Hollywood, but it is in LA, and I call it Peter Pan housing. It's designed for people who are not going to grow up and certainly not going to grow old. It's full of stairs and hazards, and there's a lot of housing like this that's not quite this attractive, but most of our housing was never designed for people with disabilities, and certainly not designed for older persons. Most older people, and I'm going to talk mostly about older people because that's the group I know the best, prefer to age in place, to stay in their own homes as long as they can. But the problem is there are all kinds of hazards in homes. There are very few features that can help an older person age. So there are 5 basic accessibility features: a no-step entry, single floor living, switches and outlets that are reachable at any height, extra wide hallways and doors, lever-style doors and faucet handles. Less than 1% of our housing in the United States has all these features. And you can see in this slide that both a bedroom and a bathroom on the first floor, about 66% of older people live in housing with that. Elevated toilets, only 16%. Things that make a lot of sense. Less than 40% have handrails and grab bars. These are like the basics. And this is very prevalent throughout our housing stock. So what is home modification? Home modification, simply put, is changing the environment, the home environment, to make daily tasks easier, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes, to reduce accidents such as falls, and falls are very prevalent among disabled persons and older people, and can reduce healthcare costs. There's evidence I'll show you about home modifications reducing healthcare costs, which is very important in terms of how we get them paid for, and to support independent living. So if you think about modifying or trying to make your home work best for you, several things under consideration. One is to remove fall hazards, things that look like they're going to be a problem. So I go into a lot of older people's homes and all homes, and you see a lot of throw rugs, and the edges tilt up, and it's very easy to trip over them. I went to one woman's home not too far from here who had a beautiful home, and she had a rug on top of a carpet. And I said to her son, who was giving me the tour, he was concerned about her. He said, "Oh, she put that throw rug on top of the carpet because there was a stain underneath it, and she didn't want anybody to see the stain." But she was putting herself at high risk by not doing something different. Adding supports, we're going to look at that, and changing behavior, changing how we do things in the environment. So these are actually houses in West Hollywood. The woman on the left, I ask people to show me how they reach things in their house and how they carry out activities. I'm not an occupational therapist, but that is what they do. So the woman on the left is reaching down very to the bottom underneath her cabinets to try to pull out a very heavy object, which is very typical. That's where we store those things that we don't use too often. But it's easy to trip and fall, and better to have those things in a location where you can reach them more often. The woman on the right, I was at a different house with her daughter, who asked me to come and do a home assessment. And so I asked her to show me how she reached things. So she got out the step stool, which is a several-part old-fashioned step stool. She climbed up, she held onto the top of the refrigerator, and she opened the cabinet at the top. Throughout this, her daughter was holding her hands over her eyes. And she didn't consider this risky behavior. She had done this many times before. So what is risky to one person may not seem risky to the other, but sometimes we don't understand the risks that we're taking. So I suggested they move those objects down lower. There are a lot of low-tech solutions for these things. So these pull-out drawers would be much better than the ones the other woman had in the first slide. A reacher can help you get things that you can't get to very easily. And redesigning an area so things are just lower to start with. It takes some thought. It's not rocket science, but it often does take some professional help to know what to do. So these are common problems. The man on the left is showing me how he gets into his bathtub. He was very modest, so he kept his clothes on. But he held on to the little soap dish and the towel rack because he had poor balance to get himself into the bathtub. Very risky. It's not what you want to do, but we sort of adapt to the environment and we adjust to it. And sometimes we put ourselves at risk of a terrible fall and an injury. The person on the right actually is my father-in-law. My father-in-law came to live with us during the last 5 years of his life from New York. And he had Paget's disease and he had throat cancer. So he had very poor balance and he was very weak. So I had a little area in the back, an accessory unit that you sometimes see in West Hollywood. It was once been a garage, and I converted it into a living space for him, using everything that I knew related to falls and universal design. So this simple shower has non-slip tile on the floor. It has handrails measured to his height, so they're tailor-made for him. It has a handheld shower. It has one high-tech device, which is a shower control that controls the temperature, so it never goes to a height that he would scald himself. I didn't want him to get burned, and his eyesight wasn't good. He lived in that back house for 5 years. He never fell, which is a miracle given all his problems. And the rest of it was designed in a manner to support him too. So it shows that good design can be both attractive and functional. Those are the two parts. So there are some well-developed programs that have just been tested by researchers and approved by the government related to home modifications. So the best one is called Capable. It comes from Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, where some of my colleagues work. And it is organized like this. It's a client-directed program for disabled persons and older persons. It involves a team of a nurse, an occupational therapist, and a handyman. And you would say, well, why do we need this? In Home Secure, we go and put in things for people without nurses and occupational therapists. And they do things like grab bars, lighting, handrails. But the difference is by having the nurse checks out medications, medication management, blood pressure, other things that are likely to create problems for the person. The occupational therapist is an expert in function. And this program is mostly about function, as you'll see in a minute. How do you help a person with severe disabilities function in their own home? And that's related to what we looked at first about independence. Function equates with independence. This program has saved Medicaid and Medicare expenditures. It consists of approximately 10 visits and about $1,300 worth of home modifications. This is on the average. So it costs about $3,000, but it's estimated to save Medicare and Medicaid in 1 year more than $10,000. The importance of this is that the health system is starting to pay for these kind of modifications because they see the connection between what happens in the home and keeping people out of hospitals and doctors' offices. And that's the way we're hoping the field's going to move. So I hope this will play. Anybody here who can help me make it play? Oh, here it comes. It has sound, I hope. Yeah.
Became ill, they were thinking about, my son said, well, maybe you need to go into one of these assisted living or into one of these senior apartments. I don't want to go there. And at first I was going to, and then one day I sat here and I said, no, this is my home. I'm not leaving my home. Fear, like coming in and out of the door before you put the bar, installed the bar, which, by the way, everybody likes. Not just me, even my 3-year-old granddaughter uses it. But before that, I had to depend on the walker. You know, okay, that was a big fear, so I never went in and out on my own, ever. Somebody was always here to take me out or bring me in. So I didn't have the independence of going out when I wanted to. See, the whole thing behind what you did and what my normal life before you came in was everything was, I can't take the risk. Taught me how to function and gave me the tools to function with. Where the other therapists from the hospital, and I'm not being mean, I'm being honest, they didn't give me any tools, they just come in and shot orders. This is what I expect out of you when I come back in 3 days. Don't tell me what you expect from me. Everything you've done has given me my independence. My independence. That's your difference.
So that program has gotten a lot of attention. It's not yet available in California, but I suspect it'll be coming because we're champions of it and want it to be tested out here too. A few words about universal design, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. So features such as a lever handle, you find very few of those in conventional homes. They're so easy to install. The middle slide is a light strip that if you need to go to the bathroom, you start walking near there and it lights your way to the bathroom instead of you trying to fumble around in the dark, which is dangerous. And I especially like the kitchen on the right, which was designed specifically for this younger man in a wheelchair. It's got everything in a kitchen you would want, things just at the right height for him, shelves that you can pull down, countertops that work, beautiful lighting, and it's again to show that places for disabled persons can be beautiful and should be as beautiful as any and other places, and they work for everyone. And I think that's what the lady was saying about the bar that they put in near her stairs in the front, that it was working for other people too, not just for her. I'm going to show you a few high-tech solutions. This says, I couldn't afford the pacemaker with Wi-Fi, but mine is able to open the garage door. And I only show you this because I'm not giving any credence to the high-tech things I'm going to show you. I haven't tried them all, and so no guarantees about them. But here are 10 smart home technologies, and these are all really available. This is from MIT Age Lab that we work with and the Hartford Center for Mature Market Excellence. So smart smoke and carbon dioxide detectors, we all have those. Wireless doorbell cameras, any of you have those yet? Those have become very popular in areas. You can see someone at the door, and it can record it in case you're not there and you're concerned. Keyless entries, where you don't have to turn anything. Automatic lighting that goes on like the strip that I showed you in the bathroom. Smart water shutoff valves. Home security systems. Smart outlets and plugs where you can plug into a smart plug and it'll turn it into a smart device. Smart thermostats that can control the temperature different times of the day. Water and mold monitoring sensors, and smart window blinds. Any of you have smart window blinds? Oh, well, if you can't get up easily and you want it to open and close the light during the day, this is possible. All these things are becoming possible.
Unbelievable.
Personal emergency response systems. We're familiar with those on our phones. There are all kinds of wearable devices. You have one there. And wearable devices that can monitor your blood pressure, your heart rate, and they can even send them to your doctor's office.
Yes.
My wife is a diabetic. She wears a diabetic pump. It rings when her blood sugar level is too low or too high, and it pumps in to her body insulin. I mean, it's sort of a medical miracle. These things are not all right on the market, but they're being researched. Sensor monitoring. You can monitor anything in a house. There are experimental houses that do this. They can track where you walk, how often you get up and down. They can also, if you're in bed, check your heart rate and your blood pressure. I don't necessarily recommend these. These are all experimental, but it shows you what's possible. What's possible. So for instance, if someone fell in their home and couldn't get up, you've probably seen those ads on TV. If they were wearing a certain kind of monitor, they wouldn't have to actually press it, but it would send a message to an alert system. This is a system you can buy at Lowe's, so these things are coming on market. Security monitoring, videos, controlling outside lights, energy management, care monitoring. These things are coming on the market. Everybody's concerned about how easy they are to use and whether it's worthwhile getting them and how much programming is involved in it and what happens when it breaks down. I used to call my son when things broke down in my computer and I couldn't figure out something. He would come once in a while and he would say, "Dad, I already showed you that once. I'm not coming back again." But some of us need reminders about how things can work. This is one, Amazon Alexa. Any of you have that yet?
Go home.
Yes. So these devices can do a lot of things. They can let you talk to someone else. They can play music. You can program radio stations. They can turn the lights off. They can lock or unlock doors with certain kinds of programming. And they're on the market. They're on the market, and they're going to be more sophisticated ones like them in the future, which can make life either more complicated or easier. But I think in the end, it's going to be easier. You can be able to do more things than we can now. And a lot of these things are going to be able to be controlled by voice, by touch, and all kinds of touch, whether it's a finger, an elbow, by talking. For people who have different kinds of disabilities, there are going to be different ways to control these devices. So that's very promising too. So these have been tested with older adults, a small sample in a retirement community. They use them for weather, temperature, alarms, music, news, and searching information. And 75% said they used it at least once a day. All of them agreed that it made life easier. And most importantly, they used it to connect to family, friends in the community. So for people who are isolated, not living near friends or relatives, socialization is a key, and some of these devices can be very helpful. So there's more information on our websites about these, and we're happy to have you look at it. There are all kinds of devices there. We teach online courses about home modifications for occupational therapists, contractors, remodelers, people in the care industry. And we have a lifetime home described on one of our websites too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pinus. Board Member Smith, do you have a question or a comment?
As someone that's modified her home,
yes.
I can appreciate all of the ideas that you've given us, and hopefully the state can incorporate some of universal design into some of the building codes.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a good question. There are some visitability codes in cities. A colleague of mine, Eleanor Smith, who used a wheelchair, she designed a universal design home for herself. It was beautiful, but she couldn't get into any of her friends' homes. And so she got the city she lived in to pass a code that all new homes with any subsidy had to be first floor, completely accessible, zero-step entrance. It was a small town she lived in. But those codes have been passed in some other small cities. And there's hope. There's hope. The other thing is to convince any of your friends building a place that if they want to age in it, they should think about the future. And if they want people to visit, they should think about the future. It's a very good comment.
Before Board Member Renfrew asks his question or makes his comment, do we need to make a motion to extend the meeting? Is there a motion to extend the meeting another half an hour?
I move to extend.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
No.
We will be extending. Board Member Renfrew, please continue with your question.
I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to say that you started off saying you were the final presenter, and you may have been the last, but you certainly were not the least. It was really quite a stimulating presentation, and thank you for coming and spending your time.
My pleasure.
Board Member Duray?
I too want to thank you, especially some of the things you pointed out definitely are applicable to me in my situation. So I'm very grateful, and I hope you come back to visit us at a regular meeting, maybe next year.
You have to. I live very close.
Thank you, sir.
Board Member Simanko?
I'd like to thank you for coming, and also I do hope that that funding increases for all these accessible items, because I've seen a lot of innovations, particularly on Pinterest in Europe, and it's unfortunate that the United States is not as further along as Europe is.
I agree. I lived in Japan, and they had a lot of high-tech things, including one of those Toto toilets, you know, that washes you and dries you. And I asked my father-in-law if he would want one of those, and he said, well, I've heard about earthquakes in California, and I don't want to be sitting on this toilet that's washing and drying me when the big quake comes. So I didn't put one in there. But there's a lot of technology out there that's attractive, functional, and should be reimbursable by programs. I have a grant from Department of Health and Human Services to look at how we can get better funding for home modifications, particularly through Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Because we definitely need that.
Board Member Watts?
Thank you, Doctor. Staying tuned for future developments, and all of these things help better include persons with various limitations into society, so that we can continue to contribute our own talents. Thank you.
Board Member Hang?
Thank you, Dr. Pinus, for a very invigorating.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too. Presentation. You know, some of my family's in the crowd here, so I hope that they're inspired. You know, my grandmother she has a caretaker, so it's hard for her to move around. So I can see some of these technologies can help benefit not only her life to give her some independence, but also help out her caretaker as well.
Very good point. Yes, caregivers can be very helped because they're trying to help people move and get around, and very good point. Thank you.
Since Medicare and Medicaid aren't necessarily covering some of these technological solutions yet, are there any nonprofits that you could think of that might help subsidize?
Well, there are some that will modify homes completely. Habitat for Humanity, Rebuilding Together. I volunteered on some of those. They'll do almost complete homes, especially for persons with disabilities. Sometimes there are foundations that will put in money to do this. a city like West Hollywood could have a little special fund. But yeah, sometimes it's difficult. Fortunately, the cost of a lot of them has been decreasing. The more widespread that they're used, the lower the cost. That's why you start to see them in places like Lowe's.
Thank you.
Board Member Nash?
Board Member Nash, thank you so much. I may have been the first person in the city of West Hollywood, I'm sure I was, to be granted access to Google Home as part of my aging in place and healing from a broken foot and now hip replacement. I can't tell you how often I use it. I say, Google, please turn on the patio. She turns on the patio lights. I couldn't access the switch. I say, Google, what time is it? I say, Google, call City Hall. I say, Google, call my friends. And lastly, as part of my getting out in the world, I am in a band at the Braille Institute. And I play the organ and keyboards. I use that thing all the time to learn the songs I have to play. And I want to tell you, since I've been home from the hospital, I've learned to play along via YouTube with Stevie Wonder, and I play a mean version of For Once in Your Life. Any of you are welcome to come up anytime. I'll play for you. Thank you.
I'm waiting for some device that will walk my dogs. That is not on the market yet.
Vice Chair Freiberg?
I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. I don't really have any questions, but I do want to let everybody know that the city does have a home secure program where you can get a couple devices installed for low-income resident seniors who are disabled, just so you know it's out there. Because West Hollywood does have everything.
Do we have copies of this?
Yes.
Good, okay.
If I could interject something. You could also contact the Center for it's DCRC. I don't remember the exact title of it, but the organization is DCRC. It used to be WCIL, and it works in conjunction with West Hollywood, and they can help you as well.
Board Member Nash?
DCRC is coming to my apartment at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. David Kreskal's coming. They helped me when I broke my foot. They're going to help me with my hip. They'll take care of everything in cooperation with the city. I am confident and happy, and DCRC will be there at 9 a.m. or a little before. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pinus. I am 74 years old, and I am still very independent, even though I am minus an arm. But I see the time coming that I'm going to need these, and I need to find out more about where to go to get this kind of help. I do have grab bars in my bathtub and a Nod Skid bathtub, which is very helpful. And you've just really lit a fire under me. Thank you so much. Let's see. We do have one more presentation. Please, Francisco Gomez. Please welcome Francisco Gomez. He's our city's transportation program administrator, and he's going to speak to us on the new on-call transportation service that will replace the existing taxi service that we've had that people have not been particularly happy with. So, Mr. Gomez.
Good evening, board members. My name is Francisco Gomez, Transportation Program Administrator, and today I'll be presenting an update on the new on-call transportation program. So to start, I'll briefly go over the city's existing taxi subsidy program. Next, I'll describe the new program in detail. And lastly, I'll take your questions. So since the year 2000, the city has offered a taxi subsidy program to West Hollywood residents over the age of 62, or those who are disabled. With this program, participants are able to purchase up to $100 in taxi fare per month in $50 increments, and the cost of each increment is $8. So for $8, you get $50 for taxi fare. If you pay $16, you get $100. The service is available 24/7 and could be used countywide. trips are fulfilled by taxi cabs. In January of this year, this program will be transitioning to a new model. Like the taxi program, this new program is intended to complement the city's other transit programs by offering trips when other services aren't running or to destinations that aren't served by the city's other programs. The new program will be administered and operated by Ambience Transportation. Ambience is a non-emergency medical transportation provider that has a strong presence in the San Fernando Valley and in the west side of LA County. Ambience has a fleet of about 100 vehicles and employs over 80 drivers and attendants. With this program, Ambience will use its own vehicle fleet to respond to trip requests and also partner with Lyft to serve as a backup. So whenever an Ambience vehicle can't get to someone in under 20 minutes or during hours when Ambience vehicles aren't running, Lyft will serve as, Lyft will fulfill those trips. So this ensures that the service is available 24/7 and that response times remain low. The new program parameters will be very similar to the taxi program. They're practically identical. Eligibility remains the same. The benefit levels remain the same. The service hours remain the same. One difference is in service area. With the current program, you can use the program to go countywide, as long as your destination is served by one of the 7 taxi companies that are franchised in the city. With this new program, you can go to and from destinations located within a 10-mile radius of the city. And with this program, the provider will be Ambience Transportation or Lyft. And to give you guys a sense of what that 10-mile radius is, I've included this map. So even though 10 miles may not seem like a lot, it does cover a significant amount of territory. Another cool thing about the new program is the ability to request trips using a computer or smartphone. You can also request trips using a regular landline phone or cell phone. When requesting trips over the phone, the process is really similar to requesting trips with the taxi program. You call in, a dispatcher takes the call, takes the trip details, and then dispatches the vehicle. When scheduling trips through a computer or smartphone, the process would be similar to using the Lyft or Uber app. Another difference in the new program is that there is no need to pay for a trip at the end of once the trip is completed, like with the current program. This is all done before the vehicle is dispatched. So when you request your trip, the dispatcher will let you know what the fare cost is. Once the trip completes, that fare amount would be deducted from your account automatically. So there's no need to discuss fare payment with the driver. This table provides a comparison of the two programs. As I said earlier, the main differences in the programs are in service area, in that the new program you can use to get to and from destinations within 10 miles of the city, the ability to request trips using a phone, computer, or smartphone, and fare costs being a little lower in the new program. So now I'm happy to take any questions the board may have.
Board Member Nash?
Francisco, I want to thank you so much for hearing all the complaints I phoned in to you and to the guy that used to run the taxi program at the city, Rob. And the alternatives and solutions that you've come up with sound wonderful. Much needed, much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Board Member Hang?
Thank you, Francisco, for the great presentation. So I see that, it's a great program. From what I've seen, you're potentially saving the city almost $30,000, going from $430,000 to $425,000 with this new program. So with the 10-mile radius, what if a participant needs to go out to like Pasadena? That's 12 miles. So
Yes, so trips could be taken outside of that 10-mile radius. It just wouldn't be subsidized. So they would just pay the difference to the contractor.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Board Member Watts?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Simanko?
I'm looking forward to the program, and I was able to talk to Ambience at the resource fair, and I'm very interested in the program.
Board Member DeRay?
Yes, sir. Nice to see you here. I do have a question. My question, and you may have answered it, I don't know. My question, before with the taxi card, we did, those of us with life-threatening illnesses get extra bang for the buck when we sent our money in. Will that situation still exist with Ambiance and Lyft?
It will. So the enhanced version of the program is still available. I didn't include a slide, but it was discussed in the staff report. But yes, so that enhanced benefit level is available for those who have medical need for frequent long distance trips. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Board Member Renfrew?
I don't have any particular questions, but I tried to participate in the taxi program and found it a little bit confusing, and I'm really glad to hear that it's moving along, and certainly taking the Lyft addition will help, I think, a lot. It's very cost effective.
Great.
Thank you for your presentation.
Board Member Smith?
I have no questions, but thank you so much for the changes, and good luck.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Freiberg?
Thank you, Francisco, for your update. The only question I had was, if someone requires a van instead of a car, is that a lot extra for them? Are they going to have to pay a lot more?
No, the fare amount would be calculated in the same way. The wheelchair vans, so Ambience has vehicles that are very accessible. So when requesting a trip, you can just let the dispatcher know that you require one of those vehicles, and they'll dispatch those.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. In that 10-mile radius, do you go to the valley?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Why would you go there?
Huh?
I said, why would you go there?
I have trouble doing freeways and canyons, especially at night. And this would be very helpful. And Dial-A-Ride is really just in West Hollywood, so this is wonderful. Thank you so much. I guess we move on to items from staff.
I will be very brief. Just congratulations to all of the honorees. A big thank you to our presenters, and congratulations to the Disabilities Advisory Board for a really productive and eventful year. Just a few quick reminders about dates, and if you have any questions about these, just see Derek or me. November 10th is the ethics training. You can also do that online. November 28th, the annual Congress of Boards and Commissions, and your own study session on December 5th. Thank you.
Derek, you have nothing you want to say to us?
Thank you so much for a productive year. This has been such a good event, and thank you to the planning body for putting both the resource fair and this together. I think you got some really amazing speakers. You had some amazing awards today, so you have a lot to be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. This time is set aside for the public to address the advisory board on any item of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board that could not be heard under item 1 at the beginning of the meeting. I would like to call up Michael Arrigo. Arrigo. I apologize.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I know it's late. I simply wanted to congratulate you all on a great meeting, and couldn't have honored no better woman than Rita Norton. Rita was a great woman. When I think of Rita, I could just see her rosy cheeks attached to that great smile. And when you meet Rita, you feel like she's your best friend. And she had a knack for telling stories. Boy, I was sitting there thinking I couldn't remember which is my favorite story, but had it been the one when she was telling me when Slash, the guitarist of Guns N' Roses, would spend all his afternoons at the old library. And her and Marcy, her daughter, who was just here, started Friends of the Library, which my partner used to be involved with that. And this library probably wouldn't have been here if it's not for Rita Norton. Thank you. Thank you very much for letting me say that about Rita, because I missed her memorial celebration. Thank you. Great meeting, you guys.
Thank you, Michael. We move now to items from board members, and we'll hear first from Board Member Smith.
I just wanted to thank my fellow board members for a hard-working year. I also wanted to thank the staff for all of the efforts that they put forth, which were tremendous. And I also wanted to thank the City Council, the Mayor Pro Tem, because they really support what is a great place to live with a disability. I've lived in a lot of cities, I've been in a lot of institutions, and this is a very welcoming community. You really don't realize how lucky you are. Thank you.
Board Member Renfro?
Well, I moved here from Miami, so I realize very acutely how lucky we all are. I lived here in the 90s, and I was extremely busy then, but now that I've been back a couple of years, I'm really glad to be involved with the board, and I thought last year was terrific, but this year was even better, and it's good to see progress and improvement, and congratulations to everybody. Thanks for all the speakers that took time out of their evening to come and talk to us, and also I want to thank the staff, because you're our unsung heroes. So you really do so much for us, and so with that, pass on to my esteemed
Board Member
colleague.
Duray?
First of all, I want to thank my peers around this table and say what an honor it is to work with each and every one of you. You're fantastic. Second of all, I want to take a moment to thank our absolutely incredible staff. And they're more than staff, they're like family. I know I must have buzzed their line too many times. So now I want to thank, as Roderick did, Board Member Renfrew, each and every one of you for being here tonight, for enjoying our speakers, our honorees, and most of all, celebrating Disabilities Awareness Month with us. It's absolutely an honor to serve, an honor to be here in West Hollywood, and to have you celebrate with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Simanko?
Hi, I went from not saying much to have a few things to say. The Women's Advisory Board televised meeting will be November 13th, and I'd like to thank some new members of the audience that I met previous to this meeting, and thank you for coming. And also, if I could stand, I would thank Fire Station number 8, who wasn't mentioned as much as Fire Station number 7, but I thank them for picking me up off the floor a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And also, if you really want to honor If you really want to celebrate the disabled community, please vote for America on November 6th on Tuesday. And so we can keep the pre-existing law as it exists. Thank you.
Board Member Watts?
Thank you, Chair. And again, thank you to all of the awardees for this evening. We're all works in progress. Each of us here at this table, those of you here in the audience, and to tonight's awardees. The artist hones his craft from first learning to draw a straight line to going on to produce works of art that sell for a lot of money in a gallery. Likewise with the writer or the athlete. Likewise the merchant. 24-hour fitness tonight. It's no secret that 24-hour fitness has its share of problems and has over the years, but they've made an awful lot of progress. And as David, Board Member Nash noted, and as I myself can attest, having had 2 hip replacements and loss of an eye and multiple other surgeries, that pool and the jacuzzi there have given me enormous relief, and I have helped others through that and seen staff there go above and beyond despite their busy schedules in ensuring that other persons with disabilities were able to make use of the lifts, making sure that the battery packs were charged and where necessary, helping people down to the ramp, down to the pool. Yeah, they have, like all of us have, room for improvement. But I'm really grateful to them, like just as I'm grateful to the fire personnel and paramedics. They go through training all the time because they realize that their skills atrophy and their muscles atrophy, so they have to keep at it. The doctors that were here, a century and a half ago, medicine was considered something akin to witchcraft, and it was more of an art than a science. But we build on those things. Let's not forget that this city has got a lot to offer, but there's always room for improvement here too. There are a lot of organizations that can use your time and your talents to give, whether it's to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, which is Mr. Schmidt's sister, I'm assuming, probably had a great need of and hopefully benefited from, as well as from your dedication to helping her while she was around. To the many HIV and AIDS organizations, to organizations serving persons with autism, with Alzheimer's, and so many other disabilities. This board serves as a liaison between those various disabilities communities and the city government. As imperfect as the city government is, and as imperfect as we are, and the folks out here in the community, we try to be a voice for you and a voice for the city to get, so that we can all improve. This last weekend when I was on the AIDS walk, I got this shirt here. I tend to wear a lot of these things, and I noted that one of the things I liked on here was is that we need to educate, to advocate, to demonstrate, to commemorate, to activate, to donate, and to eliminate barriers to full participation, barriers to and prejudice. With that, thank you, board, and thank you, chair, and thank you to the awardees, and for those of you out there for putting up with my banter. Thank you again.
You're wonderful. Thank you. Board Member Heng.
Thank you, Board Member Watts. First of all, I'd like to thank our board, and I'd also like to thank our City Council, Mayor Duran, Mayor Pro Tem John D'Amico, Council members Lindsay Horvath, Council members Lauren Meester, and Council member John Heilman. He wasn't here today, but our City Council has supported us through thick and thin. And through any issue we've had, they've always been supportive, so I want to say thank you very much to the West Hollywood City Council. I'd also like to thank the presenters that came today, Dr. Charles Liu, Dr. John Pinus, and Francisco Gomez. I know that they have all busy schedules, but thank you for taking your time to come and speak to our city, our board, and to our community. We have all learned a lot from all of your presentations. I'd also like to congratulate all the winners today that won throughout our awards ceremony. And I'd also like to thank all the community that has come out to support our board and our meeting. And lastly, I'd like to thank my family. They all came out here to support us and our board, so thank you.
Board Member Nash? Didn't know that was yours.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the city staff. There are too many people to mention, but particularly David Juni, the Coreys, Derek, our transportation expert, and in particular, someone who has heard all my issues and patiently addressed them. I'd like to thank Joan Mithers. I hope that I got the name right after all this time. I'm not shy from being critical about 3 issues that I quickly want to address. This big screen does not work for me. It's a total washout. I can't read anything on it from right here. I want you to know that and hopefully address it. These 2 little monitors on either side of the auditorium, I believe they're about 40 inches. They could easily be replaced with very little money and on the same stands by 90-inch HD monitors. And lastly, I took City Ride home from the hospital when I was released last week after hip surgery. I barely maintained consciousness on the way home. I almost passed out. When I was dropped at 959 Palm, I had to fight traffic across Palm Avenue. It's been pointed out to city staff that there needs to be a crosswalk there. And I'd like to see how fast the city can move and put a crosswalk where a crosswalk ought to be. Other than that, I'd just like to thank all my board members who covered me during the last year while I've been out with a broken foot, a hip replacement. I'll be out again soon with another hip replacement. But thank you all very much. You're beautiful. There's no place like home. There's no place I'd rather live in the world than West Hollywood. They take the best care of people with disabilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Chair Freiberg?
Okay, well, I want to start with a very important question. Does anyone know if the Dodgers won?
Anybody know?
Nobody?
Nobody knows?
They did win? Okay, all right, now we can move on. I'd like to congratulate all the award recipients. We're so lucky to have so many caring people in our community, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm kind of going to go off what Board Member Watts was talking about. It's like when you hear the term disabled, what may come to mind is that picture of a wheelchair on a blue placard. And if you're an able-bodied individual, you might think, well, what does the Disability Advisory Board have to do with me? You know, what do I care? But a disability doesn't have to be something that's completely life-changing or even permanent. For example, like you could be healing from surgery and now you have to use crutches to get around. Or maybe an old injury is acting up and you can't get up those stairs like you used to. Or maybe you're like me, where you're starting to lose your eyesight because you're staring at a computer screen all day. But besides these physical disabilities, there's also the mental disabilities, which is depression, Alzheimer's, autism, just to name a few. But all of these issues are of this board's concern because we have 14% of our residents have a disability in this city. And what we do is we help raise awareness for those residents. So if you have a concern or if you have an idea, we invite you to come to one of our meetings. We meet every 4th Wednesday at 6 o'clock at Plummer Park, and we would love to hear from you. And I think we're pretty nice people, right? Most of us. And so we'd love to see you there, and we welcome you. Thank you, Dr. Charles Liu and Dr. John Pinos, for your informative presentations, and Francisco for his transportation update. And Joan, Derek, and Kim, I am so thankful for your outstanding support for this board. You guys are like the backbone of this board, and thank you for orchestrating tonight's event. You guys did a beautiful job as usual, and we love you from the bottom of our hearts, and you know that. I'd like to thank the mayor and city council, and especially Council Member Horvath, for giving me the honor of serving on this board. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my fellow board members for their dedication and passion. And I enjoy working with you all, and thank you all for joining us tonight.
There's not much left for me to say except to congratulate again the honorees. And I'd also like to congratulate our Los Angeles honorees, our own board members, Yola Duray and Annie Savanko, and tell them how proud we are of them. I want to thank all three of our wonderful speakers. You gave us a lot to think about. You gave us a lot of information, and we're very grateful that you took the time to come tonight. I want to thank our amazing, huge, amazing thank you to our staff, who I drove crazy for the last couple weeks with questions. But if this was I think it was Board Member Renfrew said this was a better meeting this year than last year. It was thanks to you guys. God bless you. And I want to just say what an honor it is to be the chair of this board, and to thank you all for putting your trust in me. It means the world to me. Now, I was channel surfing the other day, and I saw a city council meeting, and they were discussing putting handrails on an incline in the new West Hollywood Park that they're renovating. And it was board member Lauren Meister who brought it up, and she's also the person who suggested I be on the board. And I promised her that I would mention the fact that we really do need handrails everywhere where there's an incline or where there's stairs, and we don't need them on one side, we need them on both sides. So I hope they follow up on that, and I just want it to go into the record that I have done what I promised to do. My last thing to tell you is I believe that Lyft and Uber are giving free rides to the polls on November 6th, and if any of you need rides or help, I think you should check that out. Thank you, and thank you all for coming tonight. I think we had a really nice meeting, and it was a little long, but I think it was a good meeting. Thank you all so much, and thank you to Danny Hing's family. All right, good night, and wait, one more thing. The Disability Advisory Board will adjourn to its next special meeting and study session, which will be held at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, December 5th, 2018, in rooms 5 and 6 of Plummer Park. Now, do I hear a movement? Excuse me. Yes,
May I,
James.
Madam Chair? Please mail in your absentee ballots. Please go to the polls. Please, please, please vote. Please vote. We got to get this guy out.
I agree. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, good night, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.